In a small, dusty town surrounded by hills, there lived a young boy who spent his days helping his mother sell vegetables in the local market. Life was hard for them. They barely had enough to eat, and the boy often went to bed hungry. But despite their struggles, the boy had a kind heart and a strong sense of right and wrong. He believed that helping others, no matter how little he had, was the right thing to do. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, the boy was walking home after a long day at the market. He took a shortcut through a quiet, narrow alley to save time. The alley was dimly lit, and the air was filled with the smell of damp earth. As he walked, he heard faint groans coming from the shadows. At first, he hesitated, thinking it might be a stray animal or his imagination. But the sound grew louder, and his curiosity got the better of him. He cautiously moved closer and saw a man lying on the ground, clutching his chest. The man was well-dressed, wearing an expensive suit, but his face was pale, and he was sweating profusely. It was clear he was in pain. The boy rushed to his side and asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" The man struggled to speak, gasping for breath. He managed to whisper, "Help me, my heart." The boy didn't think twice. He knew he had to act fast. He had seen his mother help someone with a similar condition once, and he remembered what she had done. He gently propped the man up against the wall, loosened his tie, and tried to keep him calm. "Don't worry, I'll get help," the boy said, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. He ran to the nearest shop and begged the shopkeeper to call an ambulance. The shopkeeper, seeing the urgency in the boy's eyes, quickly dialed the emergency number. While they waited for the ambulance, the boy stayed by the man's side, talking to him softly to keep him conscious. "You're going to be okay," he repeated, hoping his words would give the man strength. The man, though weak, managed to nod slightly, his eyes filled with gratitude. When the ambulance finally arrived, the paramedics quickly took over, and the boy watched as they loaded the man into the vehicle. Before the ambulance drove away, one of the paramedics turned to the boy and said, "You did a good thing today. You might have just saved his life." The boy nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. He didn't know who the man was or why he was in the alley, but he was glad he could help. Little did the boy know, this act of kindness was about to change his life in ways he could never have imagined. The man he had saved wasn't just anyone, he was one of the wealthiest and most influential people in the country. And what happened next would leave everyone shocked. The next morning, the boy woke up early as usual. His mother was already preparing their small breakfast of bread and tea. She noticed he seemed quieter than normal and asked if something was wrong. The boy hesitated for a moment, then told her about the man he had helped the previous night. His mother listened carefully, her eyes widening as he described the man's expensive clothes and the ambulance that had taken him away. "You did the right thing," she said, patting his shoulder. "But remember, son, we must never expect anything in return for doing good." The boy nodded, though a part of him couldn't help but wonder about the man. Was he okay? Did he survive? He pushed those thoughts aside and got ready for another day at the market. Life went on as usual, with the boy helping his mother sell vegetables and trying to make ends meet. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something big had happened that night. Meanwhile, in a luxurious hospital room in the city, the man the boy had saved was slowly recovering. He was surrounded by doctors, nurses, and a few well-dressed individuals who seemed to be his assistants. The man, though weak, was alert and determined. He turned to one of his assistants and said, "Find the boy who saved me. I need to see him." The assistant nodded and immediately began making calls. Back in the small town, the boy was busy arranging vegetables on their stall when a sleek black car pulled up near the market. The car stood out in the dusty, crowded street, and people began to whisper and point. The boy looked up, curious, as two men in suits stepped out of the car. They walked straight toward him, their polished shoes crunching on the gravel. "Are you the boy who helped a man in the alley last night?" one of the men asked, his tone polite but firm. The boy froze, unsure of what to say. He glanced at his mother, who was equally surprised. After a moment, he nodded. "Yes, that was me," he said quietly. The man in the suit smiled. "The man you saved would like to meet you. He's asked us to bring you to him." The boy's heart raced. He looked at his mother again, seeking her approval. She nodded, though her face was filled with worry. "Go," she said softly. "But remember who you are." The boy climbed into the car, feeling out of place in the plush leather seats. As the car drove away, he stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of his town fade into the distance. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew his life was about to change. When they arrived at the hospital, the boy was led through gleaming hallways to a private room. The door opened, and there, sitting up in bed, was the man he had saved. The man's face lit up with a warm smile as he saw the boy. "Come here, young man," he said, his voice gentle but commanding. The boy stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly. The man reached out and took his hand, holding it firmly. "You saved my life," he said, his eyes filled with emotion. "And now, I want to do something for you." The boy's heart pounded as he waited for the man to continue. What could this wealthy stranger possibly want to do for him? Little did he know, the answer would leave everyone in shock. The boy stood nervously by the millionaire's hospital bed, unsure of what to say or do. The man's grip on his hand was firm, and his eyes were kind but intense. "Sit down," the man said, gesturing to a chair beside the bed. The boy obeyed, his mind racing with questions. The room was quiet except for the faint beeping of the heart monitor. The man took a deep breath and began to speak. "Last night, I thought I was going to die," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I was in so much pain, and I couldn't call for help. But then you came. You didn't run away or ignore me. You stayed and did everything you could to save me. Do you know how rare that is?" The boy shook his head, his cheeks turning red. "I just did what anyone would do," he mumbled, looking down at his hands. The man chuckled softly. "No, not everyone would do what you did. Many people would have walked away, afraid or unwilling to get involved. But you didn't. You showed courage and kindness, and that's something special." He paused, studying the boy's face. "Tell me about yourself. What's your life like?" The boy hesitated, unsure of how much to share. But something about the man's gentle tone made him feel comfortable. He began to talk about his life, how he lived with his mother in a small, run-down house, how they struggled to make ends meet, and how he spent his days helping her at the market. He spoke about his dreams of going to school and learning more, but how their poverty made it impossible. The man listened intently, his expression growing more serious as the boy spoke. When the boy finished, the man nodded slowly. "You've been through a lot," he said. "But I can see that you have a good heart and a strong spirit. That's why I want to help you." The boy's eyes widened. "Help me? How?" The man smiled. "I'm going to make sure you and your mother never have to struggle again. I'll provide you with a proper home, good food, and the best education money can buy. You'll have opportunities you've never dreamed of." The boy was stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "But, why?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you saved my life," the man replied. "And because I believe in paying it forward. You've shown me that there's still goodness in this world, and I want to make sure that goodness is rewarded." Before the boy could respond, the man called for one of his assistants. "Take him home," he instructed. "Make sure he and his mother are comfortable. We'll start making arrangements tomorrow." The boy was still in a daze as he was led out of the room and back to the car. His mind was spinning with thoughts and emotions. Could this really be happening? Was his life about to change forever? When he arrived home, his mother was waiting anxiously. She rushed to him, her eyes filled with worry. "What happened? Are you okay?" she asked, pulling him into a tight hug. The boy took a deep breath and began to explain everything. As he spoke, his mother's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "This is a miracle," she whispered, holding him close. "A true miracle." But as they celebrated this unexpected turn of events, neither of them could have predicted what would happen next. The millionaire's generosity was just the beginning, and the surprises that lay ahead would leave everyone shocked. The next few days were a whirlwind for the boy and his mother. The millionaire's assistants arrived early in the morning with bags of groceries, new clothes, and even furniture for their small home. The boy's mother was overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face as she thanked them repeatedly. "We don't deserve this," she kept saying, but the assistants simply smiled and assured her that it was all part of their boss's plan. By the end of the week, their tiny house was transformed. The cracks in the walls were repaired, the roof no longer leaked, and the single room they lived in was filled with comfortable furniture and warm blankets. The boy couldn't believe his eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of security. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One afternoon, a sleek car pulled up outside their home, and the millionaire himself stepped out. He was dressed in a simple yet elegant suit, and though he still looked a little pale from his recent health scare, he walked with confidence. The boy and his mother rushed to greet him, their hearts pounding with gratitude and nervousness. "I wanted to see how you're settling in," the millionaire said with a warm smile. He looked around the house, nodding in approval. "This is much better," he said. "But it's only the beginning." The boy's mother clasped her hands together, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Sir, we can never thank you enough for what you've done. You've given us more than we ever dreamed of." The millionaire shook his head. "No, it is I who should be thanking you. Your son saved my life, and that's something I can never repay. But I can try." He turned to the boy and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I've made arrangements for you to attend one of the best schools in the city. You'll start next week." The boy's eyes widened in shock. "School? For me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," the millionaire replied. "You have a bright future ahead of you, and I want to make sure you have every opportunity to succeed. Education is the key to unlocking your potential." The boy's mother began to cry again, this time tears of joy. She hugged her son tightly, unable to find the words to express her gratitude. The boy, too, felt a lump in his throat. He had always dreamed of going to school, but he never thought it would actually happen. The millionaire stayed for a while, talking to them about his plans for the boy's future. He promised to cover all the expenses, including uniforms, books, and transportation. He even mentioned the possibility of sending the boy abroad for higher studies someday. "The world is full of opportunities," he said. "And I want you to have access to all of them." As the millionaire prepared to leave, he handed the boy a small card with his personal phone number. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call me," he said. "I'll always be here for you." The boy nodded, clutching the card tightly. He watched as the millionaire's car drove away, feeling a mix of excitement and disbelief. His life had changed so much in such a short time, and he couldn't wait to see what the future held. But as he stood there, a thought crossed his mind. Why was the millionaire being so generous? What did he really want in return? The boy pushed the thought aside, telling himself to be grateful. Little did he know, the millionaire's kindness was about to lead to something even bigger, something that would shock everyone who knew their story. The boy's first day at his new school was nothing short of surreal. Dressed in a crisp uniform and carrying a brand new bag filled with books, he felt like he was living someone else's life. The school was a grand building with sprawling gardens, modern classrooms, and students who came from wealthy families. He couldn't help but feel out of place, but he reminded himself of the millionaire's words, "You belong here." The teachers were kind and welcoming, and the students, though curious about the new boy, were friendly. Slowly, the boy began to settle in. He worked hard, determined to make the most of this incredible opportunity. Every evening, he would return home and tell his mother about his day, the lessons he learned, the friends he made, and the dreams he was starting to build. Meanwhile, the millionaire kept his promise. He checked in regularly, sending his assistants to ensure the boy and his mother had everything they needed. He even visited them occasionally, always with a warm smile and words of encouragement. The boy's mother often said, "He's like an angel sent to us." But the boy couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. One day, after school, the boy was called to the principal's office. He walked in nervously, wondering if he had done something wrong. But instead of the principal, he found the millionaire sitting there, waiting for him. The man smiled and gestured for the boy to sit down. "I have something important to tell you," the millionaire began. "You've been doing exceptionally well, and I'm proud of you. But I want to do more than just support your education. I want to give you a future." The boy frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" The millionaire leaned forward, his expression serious. "I've decided to make you my heir," he said. "I don't have any children of my own, and I want to leave my legacy to someone who deserves it. Someone like you." The boy's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Your heir? But, why me?" "Because you've shown me what true kindness and courage look like," the millionaire replied. "You didn't save me for money or fame. You did it because it was the right thing to do. That's the kind of person I want to carry on my legacy." The boy was speechless. His mind raced with questions and emotions. Could he really accept such a huge responsibility? What would this mean for his life, and for his mother's? The millionaire seemed to sense his hesitation. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently. "Take your time. But know that this is my way of thanking you, and of ensuring that your kindness continues to make a difference in the world." As the boy left the office, his heart was heavy with the weight of the millionaire's offer. He knew his life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But one thing was certain, the surprises were far from over. The boy couldn't stop thinking about the millionaire's offer. Becoming his heir meant more than just wealth, it meant responsibility, expectations, and a life he had never imagined. He spent days talking to his mother about it, trying to make sense of it all. She listened patiently, her eyes filled with both pride and worry. "This is a big decision," she said. "But remember, no matter what you choose, I'll always support you." Meanwhile, the millionaire continued to show his generosity. He arranged for the boy to attend special classes after school, taught by some of the best tutors in the city. He even introduced him to influential people, taking him to meetings and events where the boy felt out of place but tried his best to learn. The millionaire's assistants were always nearby, ready to help with anything the boy needed. One evening, after a long day of school and tutoring, the boy was invited to the millionaire's mansion for dinner. It was his first time visiting the grand estate, and he was in awe. The mansion was like something out of a movie, with tall pillars, sparkling chandeliers, and gardens that seemed to stretch forever. The millionaire greeted him warmly and led him to a dining room where a feast was laid out. As they ate, the millionaire spoke about his life, how he had built his fortune from nothing, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. "Success isn't just about money," he said. "It's about making a difference in the world. That's why I chose you. I see the same potential in you that I had when I was young." The boy listened carefully, his mind racing. He admired the millionaire's determination and vision, but he couldn't help but feel the weight of his expectations. "What if I'm not ready for this?" he asked quietly. The millionaire smiled. No one is ever truly ready for something like this. But I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. You won't be alone. After dinner, the millionaire took the boy on a tour of the mansion. They stopped in front of a large portrait of a young man who looked strikingly similar to the millionaire. This was my brother, the millionaire said, his voice tinged with sadness. He passed away many years ago. He was kind and selfless, just like you. Losing him taught me the importance of leaving a legacy that matters. The boy felt a lump in his throat. He realized that the millionaire's offer wasn't just about gratitude, it was about filling a void in his life. But could he live up to such expectations? As he left the mansion that night, the boy knew he had a difficult decision to make. But one thing was clear, his life would never be the same again. And the surprises were far from over. The boy spent the next few weeks torn between excitement and fear. The millionaire's offer was life-changing, but it also felt like a heavy burden. He continued to attend school and the special tutoring sessions, but his mind was constantly occupied with thoughts of the future. His classmates noticed his quiet demeanor and often asked if something was wrong. He would just smile and say, "I'm fine," but inside, he was struggling. One day, after school, the millionaire's assistant arrived to take him to a meeting. "It's important," the assistant said. "He wants to discuss your decision." The boy's heart raced as he climbed into the car. He still hadn't made up his mind, and he wasn't sure what to say. When they arrived at the millionaire's office, the boy was led into a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The millionaire was seated at a large desk, but he stood up and greeted the boy with a warm smile. "How are you?" he asked, his tone gentle. The boy hesitated before answering. "I'm okay," he said. "But I've been thinking a lot about your offer. It's a huge responsibility, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for it." The millionaire nodded, his expression understanding. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said. "But let me tell you something. When I was your age, I had nothing. No money, no opportunities, no one to guide me. But I had a dream, and I worked hard to make it come true. You have something I didn't have back then, someone who believes in you and wants to help you succeed." The boy listened carefully, his heart swelling with gratitude. "But what if I let you down?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The millionaire smiled. "You won't. I've seen your kindness, your courage, and your determination. Those are the qualities that matter most. If you're reading this, it means I've entrusted you with my greatest responsibility. You are now the head of my company and the guardian of my legacy. I know you'll make me proud. Remember, success isn't about wealth, it's about making a difference. Always stay true to yourself." The boy's hands trembled as he realized what this meant. The millionaire had officially made him his heir, not just in name but in action. He felt a mix of emotions, pride, fear, and determination. He knew he had big shoes to fill, but he was ready to try. The next morning, he went to the millionaire's room and found him sitting by the window, looking out at the gardens. "I read the letter," the boy said quietly. "I'll do my best to honor your trust." The millionaire smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I know you will," he said. "You've already made me prouder than I ever thought possible." The boy took a deep breath, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known before. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it. With the millionaire's guidance and his own determination, he was determined to build a future that would make a difference, not just for himself, but for others. And so, the boy who had once struggled to survive became a beacon of hope and kindness, carrying forward the legacy of the man who had believed in him. His story inspired everyone who heard it, proving that even the smallest act of kindness can change the world. And what happened next? It shocked everyone, but it also gave them hope, hope that goodness and courage can truly change lives.